portions because she also wrote a lot of her music. And then, of course, we do know that in recent years, Black Coffee has actually procured the Gallo library. So he owns a lot of the catalogs from the artist of back in the day. And it will be interesting to know what he does with it in future. He hasn't really communicated his plans around that, but he is the rightful owner of a lot of the catalog that belonged once upon a time to Gallo Music. It's just gone 1:15 right here on The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM. Please, you can share your recollections and your memories of Brenda Fassie with us on our WhatsApp line. 0614104107 is the line. You can either send us a voice note or, of course, you can send us a message. Just take a quick break here. We'll come right back and then we'll get into a conversation as we count down to the elections around active citizenship that is needed to unlock South Africa's potential. And we're going to be catching up with Dr. Harlan Kluter, who is with the Department of Public Administration and Management at the University of the Free State.
The National Pulse on SAFM.
If a party leader registers a party and then effectively allows another person, who just happens to be Jacob Zuma now, to be the new leader of the party by that initial person's choice, can that position be reversed and the IEC then will accede to that request?
Yeah, if the party goes to a conference and they elect new leadership, they can submit the new details of the new leaders. However, if there is a contestation on the issue of leadership, and the Commission is confronted with two resolutions of two factions within the same party. What the Commission has done in the past is that it would refer those factions or those groups to courts and say that they must bring a court order that determines the leadership of that particular party.
Terry Chelani, thank you for your time, Executive Chairman of the Institute of Election Management Services in Africa.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two grappling wizards will battle it out for the vacant welterweight title at EFC 113 as Gelson Souza and Zakir Banat fight it out for championship glory. Plus, Faiz Jacobs is out for revenge against the great Sylvester Chipumbu for number one contendership. EFC 113 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Location, London. Unit, the London Serious Crime Unit. The Steering, Luther, a dedicated policeman, an inspired maker of connections, and a whirlwind genius. Dazzling, obsessive, and sometimes dangerous in the violence of his fixations. The Challenge. Every episode will see Luther facing a succession of psychological duels between a hunter and the hunted, a predator and the prey. Tune in to Luther, Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 1st of May. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application close on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages at SAFM Radio. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Road Accident Fund will be announcing winners of the Road Safety School Competition and youth projects to be supported by the fund. In August 2023, the RAF launched a comprehensive road safety program for learners and youth. And this program involved educating learners in primary schools, special schools and high schools about road safety and through talks, industrial theatre performances and road safety simulations. The event is going to be held in Durban on Friday, the 10th of May. And for more information, you can call RAF on 087-820-1111 or visit www.raf.co.za.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, let's get into a conversation. By the way, as per usual, every single day we are streaming on our social media platforms. So if you'd like to get a look at Dr. Harlan Klutter so that you can call him by name the next time you happen to be in the Free State, you are more than welcome to do so via our handles at SAFM Radio. We are in conversation with the good doctor now as we gear up for the upcoming national and provincial elections on the 29th. There's a lot of buzz about it being a pivotal moment that's been, attributed to 1994. But amidst all that hype, the good doctor here puts forward a thought for us, and he says perhaps we're putting too much focus on elections and not enough on what happens between them. And that's a very good question to pose to us, perhaps to ponder on a little bit further. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Harlan.
Good afternoon, Bridget, and good afternoon to your listeners and your viewers.
Yeah, let's start right there. Are we putting too much focus on, the importance of the upcoming elections? They've been billed as the most important elections since 1994, and perhaps not putting enough on the spaces in between the election periods.
I think if you look at the last 30 years or so, I think one of the mistakes that we've made, pre-94, we had a very active citizens and very strong community-based organizations that have really were very vocal in terms of injustice and all the wrongs. Post-1994, you almost had that lull where people said, okay, let's give this new government now an opportunity to see what happens. And so, for me, the most important thing is what happens in between elections. What is it? What are we doing to keep our politicians to account? What is it besides this, that we have a very strong tradition in our country of activism, of volunteerism. And so there's such a lot that can and must be done so that Project South Africa and rebuilding South Africa is not just left to the politicians and we as ordinary citizens just sit back and say, okay, you deliver citizen services and we do nothing. It really is a co-created space. And so the idea that I'm mooting is nothing new. I think what happens in between elections is just as important because we will vote on the 29th. But if we expect the world is suddenly going to be different on the 30th or the 1st of June, we are in for a rude awakening.
Absolutely. And in fact, that is where you lean a lot of your emphasis to say as important as voting is, real change doesn't happen, unless we work on the day-to-day, unless we are active on the day-to-day.
Yeah. And that means, there are teachers that are retired. There are people that can contribute. I meet lots of South Africans. I've got a podcast called Great Governance Zere. Mm-hmm. And we try and find these citizens that are actively playing their part. From Heidelberg to Bloemfontein, there's no shortage of South Africans volunteering or fixing things, getting involved. And we need more South Africans to participate in Project Rebuilding South Africa. We cannot leave all the thinking to government. We cannot leave all the creativity to government. And so the National Development Plan talks about it's a partnership between the academic institutions, government, community, and the business sector that will get us out of this governance mess that we are in.
And perhaps maybe the whole concept and the role of political participation and responsibility is lost on us just as common citizens. I don't know, your perspective on that?
Yeah, we had a meeting last week with local government, and we said, the way government communicates, it's almost mushroom governance. Keep citizens in the dark and only feed them certain information. So there's a lot that we need to do in terms of civic education, for example. What is the role of a councillor? How do I keep you into account? I know it's been 24 years of local governance, but the civic education is so important. We're doing a research project now. And what I discovered recently is that in Singapore, just to give you one example, young people learn there about tax education as a subject in high school. And so that same, we need that vigilance, we need that activism. We also need to learn about civic education. What is my rights as a citizen, but what are my responsibilities? How do we build and what can I contribute? I come from in the 80s where we had teachers in high school that really advocated this activism, that you can change your context by starting something. Give us nothing and we give you something, is that you make do with what you have. That's the philosophy of Steve Biko as well. Self-reliance, black man, you're on your own, doing it for yourself and not waiting on your context to change, but knowing that you have agency, you have power to actively do something about your context.
So, Doc Harlan, how do we then bridge that gap, right? You speak about the lack of civic education, and this is a running theme, particularly this year, from many perspectives, the lack of civic education. So how do we bridge that gap then? What needs to be done?
I think there are a couple of things. We, in our discussions the other day with local government, we said, let's have, for example, and governance starts locally. I'm a scholar in local government and local governance. We said, there's a social distance between local government and communities. If we start, for example, a campaign, a Know Your Councillor campaign, to inform people about who the councillors and how to access. There's the idea that we have of an ideas bank. There's no shortage of South Africans who can identify problems. But a shortage of those that says, here's the solutions. Let's have an ideas bank at locally. Let's take local economic development, for example. Municipalities procure. But we have found in our research that supply chain, they do not speak to local economic development. And there's this juncture. So your ordinary citizen needs to know, what is local government doing? What are they responsible for? And how can I participate? How can I bring ideas? And because the Constitution, Section 152, speaks about local government having to create an environment to encourage citizens to get involved. But the opposite is true. We keep citizens in the dark and we make them dependent on us as councillors, for example. And we feed them as little information, and it becomes a tick box exercise instead of robust engagement.
I definitely want to explore that point a little bit further, but perhaps to be on the safer side for time, we do it on the other side of our headline news. So our lines are open by way of reminder if you want to be a part of the conversation. 086 000 2032, 061 410 4107, as we talk around active citizenship as a source that could unlock South Africa's potential. Are we doing enough in the space? The various stakeholders, from communities to the multitude of civic organizations, government, etc. Or is there room for more to be done? And what's your perspective as the normal man and woman on the South African streets? What's your perspective in as far as that is concerned? What could you possibly be doing, to change things on the ground for yourself and your community? And Musa, I think, is standing by with the headline news now. Gimudupi, my apologies. Gimudupi standing by with the headline news at 1:30.
Thank you very much, Bridget, and good afternoon. In your headlines, Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke has called for a proactive, ethical and responsive government as she reflects on South Africa's 30 years of democracy. Former President Thabo Mbeki has hailed the courageous and ethical leadership of the late Dr. Sam Motsuenyane, who's been laid to rest today in Pretoria. And Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says the government will not tolerate threats to peace and security a year after the arrest of the former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Details of these and other stories at 2.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. We are in conversation with Dr. Harlan Klutter, who's with the Department of Public Administration and Management at the University of the Free State. And we're talking about active citizenship and the role that it plays to advancing, not just our democracy, but also advancing society as a whole. And you speak a lot about real grassroots governance. And for me, I understand that as bringing the power back to the people, which essentially is at the core of this great constitution of ours.
No, exactly. That is what we call participatory democracy. We've got 3: constitutional democracy, representative democracy, and participatory democracy. So representative democracy means, like we're going to do now, we're going to elect our representatives. But that keyword participatory democracy means that in between elections, we participate. That's why we've got ward committees, for example. Municipalities have got these institutional frameworks, ward committees. But in many municipalities, these ward committees are not either functioning or they become just sweethearts of the councillor. So if the yellow party wins, the ward committees reflect that. Now, the ward committee talks about that the committee are there to assist. They're there to assist the councillor, and they should be broadly representative of the constituency. So sport, women, youth, religious age, all these sectors that makes up a community should be there. Now, the municipality also have and all municipalities are now approving budgets, which is called the Integrated Development Plan. But that integrated development plan comes from a needs-based analysis from where municipality, they go out to municipalities, to communities, which is called community-based planning. But many times in my discussion with one official, for example, I asked him, what do you do with all these inputs from communities? You know what he tells me, Bridget? He says, we take notes. He said in Afrikaans, ons neem kennis. We take notes, So it means for many municipalities, it becomes a compliance paper exercise to say, yes, we've consulted communities, but you know what? We will in any case do what we think is best. So that real, genuine grassroots participation where developmental local government speaks about communities working with government to find sustainable solutions, that is absent because there's no will.
And I then assume that, if they're out there engaging for the purposes of just taking notes, and as you say, a tick box exercise, if we aren't empowered as citizens and community to then better understand our role, it means we're also in a position of disadvantage when it comes to then holding them accountable for the plans and the implementation of the things and solutions that affect directly us and our communities. Because we don't know how
to. No, definitely. The Municipal Systems Act talks about a municipality has got 3. It's the politicians, it's the administrators, and the community. So you will find the administrators and the politicians, they know exactly the rules of the game. So communities will need to understand the rules of the game. If you want to play rugby, you need to understand the rules so you can participate fully. So because communities are disadvantaged and they do not know really, and then they become, and then politicians play these games as well, this blame game. Politicians, you ask a politician what is wrong, he'll tell you, it's these administrators, man. If you ask the administrator what is wrong, he says, it's these politicians. And so the elephant fights, and then the grass gets hurt. And that is typically what happens in communities, where communities are in the dark, and we need to have, I think, in my view, a massive civic education program going, where we educate people citizens about their rights and responsibilities, and why participation is important. I can also understand how people lose confidence in the system because people participate in processes, but they cannot see the result of it. You say it's like say, I vote and I vote and I vote and I stay poor. I keep telling you about this. I keep telling you about the problem, but nothing gets done about it. I spoke to a rugby club yesterday, for example, in the Paarl area, where the rugby field is next to a little stream, a channel, But the local government, they cannot fix the problem. So every Saturday, the ball gets in there. Now the game is stopped because the ball must come out. Government is just unresponsive, and they feel with their hands tied behind the back because we keep alerting and they keep hoping. And they're being made promises, but nothing then happens.
Absolutely. And I mean, the more of our democracy sort of matures, the more things become complicated, right? Because now we look at even, situations like coalition, and you speak around coalition building, and that just makes it sort of even more complex for people to then engage and participate because they don't even understand what the hullabaloo is all about in those situations.
But politicians understand. Politicians understand power. And that's why, unless civil society organize themselves better, if you are one little rugby club speaking, then they can ignore you. But if you are a broad alliance, just like in the UDF in the 80s, I think citizens need to organize themselves so much better and realize their own power and their own agency. So that when they engage with local government, it's from a united front of this broad alliance that we talked about between the academic institutions, communities, and business sector. I think they have proved, in the Free State, for example, there are many organizations, like I said, Helderberg Hope in Gauteng, that they have, in my discussions with them, in our research with them, they've got a formula that they can fix potholes for about, I think, 18 Rand a bag or something like that. Government cures that at about 380 per bag. And so there's creativity amongst communities to fix problems, but the answer lies in a partnership approach and understanding that civil society must lead, government follows. I think for me, the next decade should be about civil society being much more vocal about demanding service. Because look, municipalities produce an annual report every year that the community hardly reads. It's in English, it's in libraries. Nobody consult. I was in one municipality, about 300 citizens, input into integrated development plan, 8 organizations participated, and they were happy with that.
And just by way of our parting shot, you also highlight the fact that, yes, and it's a sort of the running theme of our conversation this morning, yes, the 2024 national elections are of significance and importance. However, the 2026 local government elections, where we directly get to then engage the process by electing our own ward councillors and ward committees, that is where our strongest voice should be.
Exactly. I think local government is a sphere of government closest to the people. We've seen an increase in coalition governments from 2016. 2016, there was about 27 coalition governments across the country. In 2021, that figure was about 70, 80. I think in the next one, we will have more than 150 coalitions because citizens are saying we are losing confidence in these big parties. What we've seen, the rise of issue-based local parties that say, we understand the nuances of our community. We understand our community best. So we want to bring local solutions. So I think that is going to be more complex. There's an author, Adam Cain, that wrote a book, Collaborating with the Enemy. And he talks about working people that you don't agree with, like, or trust. And I think that is the next 10 years. It's about coalition maturity, learning to put our purpose together and leaving our egos at the door. I think that's very difficult for some. So putting purpose together, because the nightmare for the poor, for a lot of poor South Africans, the nightmare have not yet ended. And our politics have become very elitist because, look, being a council is also the first step into the middle class. And so it's a highly contested space. And so I think we are in for a bumpy ride for the next 10 years, but such as ours, it's a robust democracy, and we need academic community and all communities to participate in the exercise.
Absolutely. Dr. Harlan Klutter, you've definitely given us a lot to chew over as we head into the elections. That was Dr. Harlan Klutter, and he's with the Department of Public Administration and Management at the University of Free State. It's just gone 22 or 1 o'clock. We're going to take a quick pause here, and then we come back on the other side of this and we get into stages, pages, screens, and more.
Nali bitsola ka ke bonolo mo atli di bantso mbark Miss B morara Miss T mo atlu di the Bonnie B Bonbon, and we'll be now playing Kena on Mondays at 4:30. The day has changed but the time slot hasn't. So if you're interested in news that's happening with us kids and our peers around the world, don't forget to tune in. See you there.
Durban is yet again ready to welcome thousands of delegates and buyers who will be attending the Africa Travel Indaba at the Durban ICC from 13th to 16th May. The Indaba, that attracts delegates from across the globe, is the continent's leading travel showpiece. Hosting events of this magnitude continues to position Durban as a business and holiday destination of choice. Durban Tourism, together with community tourism organizations and local businesses, are eager to showcase that indeed Durban has more to offer. Durban is on the move. Join us at stand DEC 1G50. Durban is Africa's leading festival and event destination according to the World Travel Awards 2023.
City lads, ladies can't wait to get out of the bottom half, and they understand that victory will elevate them from their current position. However, JVW ladies want a win to secure a better position in the top half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game, City Lads Ladies FC versus JVW Ladies FC, on Sunday 12 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Stages, pages, screens, and more with Bridget Masinga.
It is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, as we get into stages, pages, screens, and more. And we're catching up with Funzo Sigoji, who is the chairperson of the Sasol New Signatures Art Competition. And this is an annual competition that really is a highlight for young artists, particularly over the age of 18, who have not yet held a solo exhibition. And it provides them with an exciting opportunity to get noticed. And we thought we'd catch up with Funzo and find out a little bit more about what happens at the Sasol New Signatures. Good afternoon to you, Funzo. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Bridget. I'm well. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to talk about this important platform for emerging artists.
Only a pleasure. Perhaps let's start with some background on the New Signatures Art Competition.
Yes, so the Sasol New Signatures Art Competition is one of the oldest art competitions in the country. It's been around since the 1960s, and it has the mandate of giving emerging artists, I heard you say young earlier on, and emerging artists could be young, but they could also be slightly older.
True.
So any artist who consider themselves emerging, meaning that they're at the start of their journey in the visual arts and are looking to break into the professional world of the visual arts industry. This competition is really tailored for them, that they can submit artwork that are then adjudicated by a panel of judges around the country, and then it culminates in a winner and a runner-up and 5 merit awards being provided. And really the aim is to launch the creative careers of these emerging artists that want to really become professional, sustainable visual artists.
Yeah, and I rather appreciate the uniqueness of this competition in the sense that it is geared towards emerging artists who have not yet held a solo exhibition, but also understanding that artists oftentimes, complain about the fact that being a part of exhibitions at times is quite daunting for them because of the finances that are required to take part in these spaces.
Oh, without a doubt, you are correct that art making can be an expensive endeavor, although we've had examples and continue to have examples of artists that are very resourceful in utilizing whatever materials are around them to tell the amazing and unique stories that they want to bring to the fore. So the way the competition is structured is through the general support we receive from SASO, who is the title sponsor, and also Stratford Van Lines, who provide logistical support and really make the competition national. We are then able to make this free. So the artist does not have to pay anything to participate in the project. All they need to do is just submit their artwork. And their artwork can be made using whatever material the artist has access to. In the past, we've had artists who've submitted work produced from recycled material and have done very well. So we do understand some of the barriers to entry in the visual arts industry, and we are hoping that our competition really plugs that gap and creates that launch pad for artists to have these sustainable careers.
Yeah. You guys have also curated, alongside with the show's curator, you've curated 4 sessions for the 2024 calendar. And these are designed, from what I've read, they've designed to help assist as well as guide artists around the expectations and considerations for the competition. So what will be discussed during these sessions, or what kind of information will be relayed to, emerging artists during these sessions?
Yeah. So one of the mandates of the competition is the kind of developmental aspect. So we really want to guide entrants along their journey for them to submit artworks that will really give them the best possible opportunity to be in the winner circle or to be one of the winners. So since last year, we've held online information sessions, which are recordings between myself and Kate Tablanche, who is the curator of the Cecil Art Collection. And in these information sessions, we provide some insight and advice on the pitfalls that potential entrants must avoid. We reflect on how previous winners have gone about in producing their work. And so it's just really the information sessions, the online info sessions are designed to assist entrants to get the best possible chance to do well in the competition. And so we do urge them to have a look at the sessions. They're available on YouTube. Anyone who wants to enter can look at the Cecil Signatures website. So it's www.cecilsignatures.co.za, and there's a world of amazing resources, blogs from previous winners, previous judges as well, giving their input and advice on what makes a winning artwork in the lead up to them submitting their own artwork. So we don't want them to just submit a work blindly, not knowing what it is that is expected of them.
I mean, listen, it definitely sounds, Funzo, it definitely sounds like a great resource, especially for emerging artists who have not been exposed to artistic spaces at a professional level. And I think it cuts down with a lot of the guesswork and the pitfalls and that perhaps, artists would be faced with when entering these spaces. Also, I found it of interest that some of the information, or one of the sessions, is focusing on copyright as well. And these are often areas of expertise that artists are not well versed in.
Oh, without a doubt. Indeed, the that info session that you're talking about, which will air next week, we've invited a specialist, Miss Jenny Pinar, who works for Adams and Adams, is a partner there and specifically deals with issues related to copyright. And of course, this is something that emerging artists need to be aware of on two fronts. Firstly, when they are intending to use an image as part and parcel of their own art making, they need to know what are the do's and don'ts of using someone else's image. And also, once they've produced their artwork, how do they go about protecting their copyright? So that is a conversation that would really encourage potential entrants to look out for, so that they do not fall into unnecessary trouble. Because we've had instances in the past where there have been copyright infringement issues when an artist unknowingly utilized an image that they had not received permission to utilize.
I mean, listen, very informative, I think, these sessions for artists in general, even if you have no intention of entering the Cecil Signatures art competition, which I don't know why you wouldn't if you're an artist, but it would definitely be worth your while for you to double back and get some of that information. As we wrap up, Funzo, give us the pertinent information. So cecilsignatures.co.za is the portal where a lot of the info is held. In terms of closing dates?
Yes. So two things that I just need to highlight is indeed the closing date, that our artists can submit their works on the 4th and the 5th of June. Those are the two dates. So that's the first thing. Please note those dates. Then the second important thing are the submission points that we've got. 8 submission points around the country in 7 of the 9 provinces. This is a national competition, so we try and have a national presence. We are each year continually working on having a presence in all of the provinces. So we are in 7 of the 9 provinces. This year we've added a new collection point in the Northwest province. We previously did not have one. So visit the website, check out those submission points, get to the one that is closest to you, submit your artwork. It's completely free. Download the entry form. As long as you are over the age of 18, South African citizen, or have permanent residency status, and have not held a solo exhibition, and that's very important because this is for emerging artists.
Yeah.
This competition is for you. So we're looking forward to receiving those entries.
Awesome stuff. We appreciate the time with you. That was Funzo Sidogi, who is, of course, the chairperson of the Cecil New Signatures Art Competition. As you heard, June 4th and 5th are the important dates that you must diarize. Those are the submission dates. It seems physical submissions is very much possible with this particular award. Well, with this particular competition, with 8 submission points in the 7 out of 9 provinces, and you can log on to cecilsignatures.co.za to get further information.
Hello friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Nali Bali. When you're young, the world is a magical place, and as we all continue to grow and we learn more, it can less become magical. As fast as everything in our lives move, it can sometimes be nice to stop, take a moment to reflect, and then make a wish. Let's listen to today's story called Sonke's Wish, written by Bubele Reche. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and
dance!
All Sonke wanted for her birthday was a video game. All her friends had one, and they always talked about all the cool video games that they played on weekends. She had asked her mother for a video game as a birthday present, and her mom had agreed to buy one for Sonke. On the day before her birthday, Sonke's mother promised to take her to the shops to buy the video game. Sonke was very excited.
I'll finally get a brand new video game. I can't wait to tell my friends at school.
Sonke woke up that Saturday morning singing and dancing. She took a taxi to the store with her mother. When they arrived at the store, Sonke's heart was beating fast with excitement.
The video game's this way, Mom. Hurry!
Whoa, slow down, Sonke.
Her mother said. As Sonke ran to the video game aisle, Sonke picked up the video game box and showed it to her mother.
Here it is, Mom. This is the video game I want.
The video game was inside a big box. It came with 2 joy pads and 2 games. One was a racing game and the other was a football game. But when Sonke's mom saw the price on the video game, she became very sad.
I'm so sorry, Sonke, but the video game is too expensive,
said her mom with sadness in her eyes.
Maybe we can try saving for it and buy it next year.
Sonke tried not to show how disappointed she was. Sonke was so sad that she did not go out to play with her friends the whole weekend. She didn't even enjoy her birthday the next day, or the special birthday cake her mom had baked for her. All she wanted was a video game. Sonke took a train to school on Monday like she always did. She was still sad, even though she understood that her mother would have bought the video game for her if she could afford it. When the train stopped at a station, the old lady who had been sitting next to Sonke got off the train. Sonke noticed that the old lady had left her bag on the seat. She ran to the train door and called after the woman. The train doors closed, and it started to move away from the station. Sonke returned to her seat and searched through the old lady's bag to find the address and contact details. Imagine Sonke's surprise when she opened the old lady's purse to find a lot of money in it. It was the most money Sonke had ever seen. She immediately thought about the video game.
What should I do? I could go to the shop now and buy the video game. It would be so easy. Then I wouldn't have to wait a full year just to get one. I could have it right now.
The thought of the money in the purse bothered Sonke all day. Finally, she decided to do the right thing and return the bag to the old lady after school. Sonke found the old lady's home fairly easy and knocked on the door. The old lady from the train that morning answered her knock with a warm smile on her face.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm so sorry to trouble you. My name is Sonke, and I've come to return your bag. You forgot it on the train this morning.
The old lady covered her mouth in surprise.
Oh my goodness! Thank you so much, my dear.
She cried.
I thought I had lost my bag forever.
You're welcome, ma'am,
said Sonke. She handed the bag to the old lady, turned and started to walk away.
Hold on, young lady. Is there anything that I can do for you to thank you for your kindness and honesty?
Asked the old woman. Sonke just smiled.
Well, the only thing I really want right now is a video game so that I can play racing and soccer games online with my friends. But I have to wait until my next birthday.
Is it one of those things that you plug into the TV?
Sonke smiled and nodded.
Wait here. I have something to show you.
The old lady went inside the house and 5 minutes later, she came back with a box.
I hope this is what you're talking about. It belonged to my grandson before he went to university.
exactly the same video game that I'm getting for my next birthday,
said Sonke.
Well then, you can have it. My grandson no longer uses it. I would be happy for you to have it.
Sonke could not believe what she was hearing. Not only was the video game almost brand new, but there were also many other games inside the box.
Are you sure, ma'am?
Of course, I'm sure. A lovely young lady like yourself who knows how to help old people like me deserves to be helped too, don't you think?
Sonke smiled from ear to ear and nodded.
Thank you so much.
No, Sonke. Thank you for being an honest, kind person.
And so we come to the end of another Nali Bali story time. Today's story was called Sonke's Wish, written by Bubele Reche. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nali Bali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Bali Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Bali, it starts with a story.
Top stories this hour. The Auditor General reflects on 30 years of democracy, and Mbeki hails the late Dr. Motsuenyane. A very good afternoon. Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke has called for a proactive, ethical and responsive government as she reflects on South Africa's 30 years of democracy. She delivered an address at the Conscious Leadership and Ethics Summit in Joburg. According to the Auditor General, the country is in need of leaders who are able to inspire others and champion the needs of the citizens. She says, amidst the shrinking fiscus, such leaders can ensure that the resources they are entrusted with are being deployed in the effective delivery of their mandate.
We stand thinking about the upcoming elections. We stand thinking about, in 30 years of democracy, where are we as South Africa? We stand conscious of the many troublesome stories we hear about of the lived experiences of our citizens who don't enjoy efficient and predictable and consistent service delivery. We stand here thinking a lot about the shrinking fiscus, the shrinking resources, and conscious that we have to figure out how we get to a point where we have an effective government.
Former President Thabo Mbeki has hailed the courageous and ethical leadership of the late Dr. Sam Motsuenyane, who's being laid to rest today in Pretoria. The former president says Motsuenyane, through his leadership of NAFCOC, became a friend of the ANC, providing support to the party and its leaders in exile. Mbeki says Motsuenyane was a selfless leader who did not seek personal gains or accolades. He was addressing mourners at Motsuenyane's funeral.
A principled man of courage, Dr. Motsuenyane did not hesitate to lead the NAFCOC delegation, which visited the ANC in Lusaka in 1986. After the 1985 21st Annual NAFCOC Conference had directed that this must happen, the president of NAFCOC gave a report of this visit to Lusaka at the 1986 22nd Annual NAFCOC Conference held at the Good Hope Center in Cape Town. Tadimokulu's departure has taken away from all of us a true gentleman whose dignified bearing and self-effacing manner and gentle humor confirmed that in him were the true humanists.
Looking at election news, former ANC Deputy President David Mabuza has defended the party's renewal project, saying it is a do-or-die mission for them to realize. Some party members have bemoaned the renewal project, which was adopted at their 2017 national conference, as a selective process only meant to deal with the antagonists of the current ANC leadership. But speaking on the sidelines of the party's election campaign in Alexandra, east of Joburg, Mabuza said that their unrelenting task of renewal will go a long way in restoring the people's hope in the ANC.
The renewal of the ANC is the core task that the ANC must undertake. And the ANC is currently on that process. Remember, it's not going to be an event, it's not going to be a one-day thing, it's going to be a process. We are going to uproot all rogue elements within the ANC. For the ANC to deal with the current challenges, it must reshape itself. It must not degenerate. That is a promise that we're making. We are going to renew ourselves. It's a question of do or die for the ANC to renew itself. So it is our challenge, and we're not going to fail to rise to the occasion.
15 people have been injured in a crash between a taxi and a truck on the N2 highway near the N3 interchange outside the Durban CBD. ALS paramedic spokesperson Gareth Jamieson says the taxi overturned following the crash.
Just before 9 a.m. this morning, ALS paramedics responded to a serious taxi and truck accident on the N2 northbound at the Spaghetti Junction. Paramedics arrived on scene to find total chaos as they found that a taxi had collided with a truck before the taxi had overturned. Approximately 15 people from the taxi had sustained multiple injuries ranging from minor to serious and were stabilized on scene by advanced life support paramedics before they were rushed through to nearby hospitals for the urgent care that they required.
And Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says the government will not tolerate threats to peace and security a year after the arrest of the former Prime Minister Imran Khan. His detention on corruption charges kicked off a wave of unrest across Pakistan. The BBC's Caroline Davies has more.
There is no mistaking the way Pakistan's military want the 9th of May to be remembered. In a press conference this week, the army's spokesperson played a video of images from the protests showing the damage and looting of military buildings. Overnight, banners and posters appeared in several cities expressing solidarity with the army. Schools in Punjab have been told to treat today as a sombre reminder of the destructive impact of the protesters. A candlelit vigil has been organised in support of the armed forces outside Islamabad's press club.
The top story at 2 o'clock, Auditor General Tsakani Maduleka has called for a proactive, ethical and responsive government as she reflects on South Africa's 30 years of democracy. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhademele.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Nalibito la ka ke bonolo mo aghi di bantse mbark Miss B morara Miss T mo ahludi the Bonnie P Bonbon, and we'll be now playing Kena on Mondays at 4:30. The day has changed but the time slot hasn't. So if you're interested in news that's happening with us kids and our peers around the world, don't forget to tune in. See you there.
Mama Kiti, I heard Rand Water talking on the radio about how dangerous it is for people to encroach on their pipeline servitude.
Yes, those high-pressure Rand Water pipelines are under the ground distributing megalitres of water. When people build on top of the pipeline, Rand Water is unable to conduct maintenance on the pipeline, which has a negative impact on water provision. Pipelines can burst without warning. People could get seriously injured or worse.
Yes, people can die from a bursting pipe. That is why people need to understand that Rand Water servitude is where a Rand Water pipeline is located. If we build our houses or businesses on a Rand Water servitude, then we are encroaching on that servitude. They say if communities want to know whether they've encroached over servitudes, they should look for the Rand Water beacons.
The beacons indicate the presence of Rand Water pipelines under the ground. They're rectangular, made of concrete, are painted either white or blue and have the Rand Water logo on them.
Let's take a walk around our area to see if there are any Rand Water beacons so that we can also tell the neighbors.
Rand Water, celebrating 120 years of existence and still finding new ways to provide clean, portable bulk water.
S3 brings you thought-provoking and informative documentaries Thursdays at 9 p.m. The TikTok Effect sees the BBC's disinformation correspondent investigate the truth behind TikTok's meteoric success. With over 1 billion monthly users, TikTok has taken the world by storm. Mariana Spring talks to ex-employees, providing our first real insight into what happens inside the company. The TikTok Effect airs Thursday the 9th of May at 9 p.m. only on S3. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It is Brenda Fassi coming through. Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. Listen, that was a banger track in the 80s. I have no recollection because, diapers and then primary school. And so I have recalls of Brenda in the later years, of her life, of course. But we're asking you today, as we commemorate 20 years of her passing, to share any of your fond memories on 061 410 4107 or 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. We'd love to know your reflections back on the Brenda era. One thing that I think one can definitely say is that her her brand of stardom is something that's missing right now, right? If you hear a lot of entertainment journalists and tabloid journalists speak, they often say that celebrities become very safe. Celebrities become very sterile in South Africa. Very boring is the word that they always use. And they're like, we miss the eras of the Brendas and the eras of the Lebu Matosas, where personalities were big, bold, bright, and and just living their best life as loudly as they possibly could, with no reservation whatsoever, doing as they please. Who cares about the consequences and the perceptions and what people say? It's great for selling the Sunday papers. It's awesome, for all of us to be reading the latest photo of who did what to who. But it does take its toll on artists. But definitely we haven't seen that brand of entertainment and that brand of artistry in a very long time. It's just gone 2:15. We're going to have a conversation now that's skewed around the legalities of repping your political party. Is there any kind of legal ramifications and legal considerations that you should be thinking of, be aware of when it comes to representing your political party, particularly within the professional setting in the workplace? Issues around wearing your political regalia, for instance. Is that allowed? Are you allowed to do that? So when your EFF calls you to do EFF Red Fridays, can you rock up to work with your red beret? What are the rights and ramifications around that is the conversation that we're going to have today. By the way, if you have a thought around it, feel free to also chime in on 061-410-4107. That is our WhatsApp line. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come right back.
My name is Songezo Zibi. I am the leader of Rise Mzansi. In this election, it is clearer than ever that we need new leaders. South Africa suffers from deep inequality, violent crime, and poverty. This is caused by politicians who have run out of ideas. We deserve a South Africa that is safe, prosperous, equal, and united. But only new political leaders can achieve this. And these leaders do not exist in the old parties. At Rise Mzansi, we have the team South Africans would want to see in cabinet. We don't make empty promises. We have a plan to govern better. It is time to vote for new leaders. Vote Rise Mzansi on the 29th of May.
This political election broadcast was brought to you in terms of the CASA regulation governing the election period. The views expressed in this political election broadcast are those of the political party and not of the SABC.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, leading the conversation. We're catching up now with Advocate Titus Wessels, who is the legal director at Strategy Labour Solutions. And of course, elections are around the corner, and every one of us is becoming more passionate about, every single development that we are confronted with from our various political parties, whether it be spirited debates around the dinner table, whether it's the call for rallies and everyone's participation. There's all kinds of action around this time. And we thought we'd have the conversation, though, around what does all this mean, all this passion about politics, particularly in the workplace, and some of the things that we should be thinking about when engaging politics within the professional setting. How are you doing, Advovo Titus? Are you good?
I'm very well, Bridget. Thank you for asking. I trust you are well.
I'm fantastic.
Good afternoon to your listeners.
We are fantastic indeed. Thankfully, these are things that we don't have to contend with within the broadcasting space as we try to uphold some kind of neutrality as much as we observe our freedom of participation and association. But we kind of have, set guidelines and parameters about our professional spaces and the things we can and cannot do. And I wonder, just broadly within the professional setting, do you find that a lot of employees and employers are quite aware of where the parameters lie in as far as engaging politics in the professional setting?
Politics in South Africa definitely has an interesting history. And I think since we became a democracy, we have over the years had enough experience to understand that when it comes to election years, people can get quite heated in as far as their political opinions, expressions, and their associations are concerned. So what we have seen over the years is that employers specifically have moved towards adopting policies in the workplace that seeks to regulate how employees exercise their constitutional right to a political opinion, expression, or association. Because one thing that's very clear and that employers try and emphasize to their employees is that, we are not a political organization. We are either a professional business or we provide professional services. And this is to avoid, and we have to maintain almost a politically neutral work environment, just to kind of safeguard and avoid unnecessary tension that might come about when people start expressing their political views.
And one can definitely appreciate what you're saying, right? That employers have adopted policies to regulate how we exercise these rights. And perhaps some might counter and say, yes, but it is my constitutionally preserved right to express myself, to have the ability to express myself and my political views. And can that right be upheld within a professional setting, particularly if I'm not endangering anybody?
Yeah, I mean, the Constitution does give us that right of political opinion. It does give us the right to freedom of association. It does give us the right to freedom of speech. But not all rights are absolute. And one thing that the Constitution does very well is it does enable us to limit constitutional rights in situations where it is for the greater good, if I can put it that way. And that's specifically why when we look at the political environment and landscape that we're currently facing, if you had to allow every employee to express their political opinion in the workplace, you might find that it starts causing unnecessary tension in the workplace. And that tension amongst employees, given their different views, could impact adversely so the cohesion or constructive interactions that would otherwise exist and needs to exist between employees. At the end of the day, we are employed in order to further the interests of our employer. And that means that we generally have to refrain from any conduct or behavior that might potentially adversely affect the interests of our employers. If we find ourselves in a situation where employees now, instead of working, are sitting around the table or discussing political views and agendas and canvassing for their political party, you might end up in a situation where little work gets done. And that kind of defeats the purpose of having employees employed in the first place. And we have to understand that is the primary function first and foremost. Nobody is denying anyone their constitutional right, but it has to be exercised at the appropriate time and in the appropriate manner.
Interesting that, as we speak around this, some of our WhatsApp messages that are already coming in are saying, but what about my freedoms of expression? I think a lot of people understand that perhaps from a freedom of representation, regalia and tangible wear, to work. A lot of people go, okay, I understand that, but now why are you restricting? Because I'm literally seeing from the corner of my eye the rebuttal going, but why are you restricting me to be in dialogue, to be in debate and verbal expression of my views and my opinions around politics and political participation and alignment?
For the most part, your freedom of expression and what you do in your personal time does not concern the employer or the organization. But where the line gets blurred is that when an employee is on duty, when an employee is kind of engaging in behavior that's of a political nature during ordinary working hours or whilst out and about in company uniform, as an example, you're now starting to blur the lines for external third parties. A customer, a client, a supplier, somebody might see you, you're from X organization, but they see you are now canvassing and expressing your views quite firmly about a particular political party, and that whilst you're on duty. And the line then starts being blurred to say, but is this employer, is this company, is this organization, is that their preferred political party of choice? Because I'm acting as a representative of my employer. And at those times where you are behaving or acting in the capacity of an employee, then your conduct and behavior reflects directly on the employer. And it may, unfortunately, given the very different views that we have as South Africans about various different political parties, it could have an adverse effect on the employer's good name or reputation, or they could be unfairly or unjustly now being associated with a political party, which they not necessarily are affiliated or associated with, and that could influence a supplier or a client's views on whether or not I want to do business with them, which in essence is not what business should be about. And we shouldn't even create situations where that could even be a possibility. When we're at the workplace, we are required to do what we are being remunerated to do. And we must concern ourselves with the work or the business of the employer. You will have an opportunity in your personal capacity or outside of the working hours to go and express your views, etc., provided that you are doing it in a responsible manner. We've seen over the years that there's been many examples where employees outside of the workplace have gone, they've acted in a particular manner, and there's been massive repercussions for organizations. My mind goes back to situations like the Jenny Sparrow matters of the world. There was an incident with Andre Katsavelos where we saw disastrous consequences as a result of that behavior for the company and the employees that work in that company. And so a lot of off-duty kind of behavior does have the ability to impact their employers. And by ensuring that we kind of create a neutral environment in the workplace, we're not only safeguarding the business of the employer, but we're also safeguarding each other in the workplace. Because unfortunately, tensions do run high, and people can get very, let's call it, passionate about their views. And you do not want situations where one person feels either intimidated by another person, or they feel some form of discomfort, or that their engagements are now being affected with their colleagues just because of a difference in political opinions or views.
Absolutely. I hear you loud and clear. 086 000 2032 is our number that you can call us on, or 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line. We're also live streaming on our social media platforms. At SAFM Radio is our handle across the various platforms, whether it's X, Instagram, as well as YouTube. But right now, though, we're going to take a quick pause and we're going to catch up with Madupi Makhalamela, find out what's happening on the headline news.
Very much, Bridge, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, Parliament's Human Settlements Committee has offered condolences to the families affected by the collapsed building in George in the Western Cape. Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke has called for a proactive, ethical and responsive government as she reflects on South Africa's 30 years of democracy. And Nicaragua has withdrawn the concession given to a Chinese billionaire over a decade ago to build and operate a canal that would link the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. A full news update coming up at 3.
Getting more money into your pockets has never been this simple and exciting. With SABC's new Simple Watch and Win game show, you can get more Zaga in your pockets. Catch more Zaga every weekday on SABC1 at 9 p.m. You could win your share of 50,000 Rand. All you have to do to win is give the correct answer for the day. Just dial *120*332 to register and play. The cost is R1.50 per minute. You could win big with more Zaga. Only on SABC1.
For the first time in 30 years, the ANC is set to lose its majority. Opposition parties have united as the multi-party charter for South Africa.
A strong democratic alliance with a proven track record
Can anchor a new government that serves the people.
But a new government that works is only possible if you vote for it. Let's unite to rescue South Africa. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two grappling wizards will battle it out for the vacant welterweight title at EFC 113 as Gelson Souza and Zakir Banat fight it out for championship glory. Plus, Faiz Jacobs is out for revenge against the great Sylvester Chipumbu for #1 contendership. EFC 113 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge is back. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 10th of May 2024 at the SABC Auditorium in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. The University of Pretoria will take on the University of Witwatersrand in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. If you want to attend the debate, you can email info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Having a conversation around political neutrality in the workplace and some of the things that perhaps one should be considering when it comes to engaging politics, whether by way of adorning your favorite party's political regalia or perhaps by way of expressing your views. What should be considered here? What are the parameters and the limitations, not just for employees, but also by employers? And I think that leads me to my next question, Advocate Titus, is what does the SA labor law say around protecting workers, for instance, from discrimination or perhaps even retaliation based on either their political beliefs or their political affiliations? Because a lot of times people will say, I don't want to, even on their social media platforms, they'll be like, I don't want to necessarily outright come out and say who I, support or who I align with because I work at place A and place A is associated with the opposition or is associated with a different party or a different leader. But they want to, every sense of them wants to engage the conversation fully. They want to disclose, they want to participate, but that knowledge, that consciousness of saying that, well, in my organization, it wouldn't be, taken kindly if I'm fraternizing with, the organization or political party that's not necessarily considered kosher.
Yeah, and I think just by virtue of what you stated now, it again emphasizes just why there exists this need for a politically neutral working environment. is to kind of avoid there even being that any form of apprehension by anybody or even that possibility that it could potentially be frowned upon. If the rules within an organization are clear, then we know what kind of conduct would be allowed and what kind of conduct would not be allowed. Many people have argued in the past that if we look at our legislation and the various forms of legislation that governs the workplace, you look at, for example, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which places an obligation on both employers and employees to ensure the safety and welfare of employees in the workplace. Now, safety and welfare can be seen as almost this overall well-being of employees. And because politically motivated behavior in the workplace can create, discomfort or undermine constructive behavior, and in some cases even create a feeling of intimidation between employees, it is best then to put in measures that will safeguard employees from those situations. We have also, seen legislation come into play that specifically seeks to prevent and eliminate harassment in the workplace. And the concept of harassment is very broad. If one looks at, what an understanding of harassment is, you can say that, almost any kind of act or omission that's directed towards individuals in the workplace that is unwanted, that impairs their dignity, creates hostile working environments, or, actually causes adverse consequences. And unfortunately, political conduct or behavior does have that potential to impair somebody else's dignity. It has the potential to create a hostile working environment. And that's why we need to seek to try and eliminate it. And yes, it is so that I am going to express an opinion, or I'm going to express a view towards a certain political party. I might even be associated with that political party. I might be a volunteer for that political party on election day. But as long as I am doing that in my personal capacity, and I am not utilizing platforms that directly associate me with my employer. Very often you see people standing in a company-branded T-shirt on the profile picture on their Facebook or on WhatsApp or whatever the case may be, and then expressing or making certain comments or remarks on their status. Now, automatically, that's directly linked to the company because by virtue of that association that you have. And that's why it becomes so important that we take steps as responsible citizens to also ensure that, our privacy settings, etc., are calculated in such a way that we don't just blast something onto Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I don't know what everybody uses these days, but that it's not associated with the employer, because I think that's the main thing here.
Yeah,
is to say that there's nothing in law that says you can't have this freedom of expression. You can't have this political view. You're denied, any form of association. It's just how I go about exercising my constitutional rights.
Yeah.
Because it's not fair to say, I'm exercising a constitutional right, but that right, in doing so, is infringing on somebody else's constitutional right in the process.
And I think
a limitation to this.
And I think, Advocate Titus, as we prepare to wind up, because, like I was saying, on the flip side, and we have seen, although a handful of these cases, but we have seen some of these cases that have been brought to light, or these scenarios that have been brought to light on social media, where people are pointing to their employers harassing them and sort of discriminating against them or showing some kind of negative, adverse behavior and attitude towards them after finding out their political allegiance, barring, of course, where the circumstances are in their private lives or social media, whatever. In those instances, is there recourse also for an employee to then bring the matter up somewhere in a safe space to say, I'm feeling this recourse because I was at a march on Friday, and you'll happen to see that I was at a march on Friday on my status, and now on Monday I come back and everyone's treating me a little bit wonky.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's companies should have internal policies and mechanisms in place that allows employees to raise issues or concerns that they might have in circumstances where they do feel aggrieved by the fact that they are now being potentially treated differently, or that they are suffering some form of occupational detriment as a result of having engaged in a certain conduct or behavior that effectively does not concern or that does not cause any harm to the employer. And there needs to be those mechanisms. And effectively, not only internal mechanisms, but if the situation becomes untenable in the workplace and my grievance that I have is not effectively being addressed or resolved, the employer risks creating a situation where the employee might elect to resign because the working conditions have become intolerable. And through that, there's means of referring disputes to the CCMA, constructive dismissal, etc. But I cannot effectively, be denied that opportunity to be heard and for my grievance to be addressed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for shedding some light on this. We've fast run out of time, but we appreciate, the time that you've afforded us today. That was Advocate Titus Wessels, who is the Legal Director with Strategy Labour Solutions. It's just gone 3 o'clock as we prepare to wind down the show from our side. Let's just pause for a second and let Ashraf come through. Let us know what's coming up today on the National Pulse, and then we'll come back and wind down things from our end. By the way, our WhatsApp line is open on 061-410-4107 if you want to send your WhatsApps. Today is 20 years of commemorating the passing of Brenda Fassie, and I know you were there at F&B, listening to her live in concert. I just know it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and your memories on that. Let's take a quick pause. We'll be right back.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
Ashraf is in the building. How goes?
I am well, thank you. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So who are you voting for? Because, I've been listening.
My vote is not so much a secret, but it's my secret.
Okay, it's your secret. Yeah,
yes.
Thank you. I've been invited, by the way, to 3 different political party private gatherings in the last 2 weeks to say, and I haven't said yes to any of the 3.
Why
I'm just
not?
saying to you. No, but
Go and see and come give us feedback.
No, I can do that as a reporter, but I think the idea is to create, to influence thought. So I have not done that. Okay, All right, let me tell you what we are talking about.
Yes.
There seems more than likely now there will be an official investigation into that tragedy of the George building collapse, right? Certainly being raised in Parliament as well. The impact of South Africa's foreign relations with USA. How does that impact on South Africa? There are many, including the former CEO of Eskom, who believes that could be disastrous. Maybe not new news, but we certainly need to cover that story. And then equal education, well, they intend marching to Parliament to demand equal education for all, right? Okay. And then finally, being a Thursday, we have this election feature, election monitor. We have a person for, 5 to 6, probably about 40 minutes of time. Herman Mashaba, Action SA, is my guest. So looking forward to that. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Fix-It.
Mr. Fix-It.
Oh,
Mr. Black Like Me, isn't
yes.
it? Right? Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Oh, it should be very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
Looking also forward to that conversation around that tragedy in the Western Cape. I was listening to Sakina earlier, and a lot of our listeners were saying that not enough attention has been called on the people responsible for that construction and that building. Not enough question.
But maybe it will come
levied.
now.
Maybe.
I think the reality with all these things,
yes.
something happens, first priority is save people, save them. Save them, then people die, sadly, then worry about bereavement, look at support for the families.
Yeah.
Then the question is what happens, what's happened, what caused it. Then you look at the checks and balances around who caused it, then you look at the people who are working there. There's big debates about whether they should be in the country or not. There's so all of that I think will follow through now. Yeah.
All right. 3 to 6 coming up on the National Pulse with Ashraf. Let's take a quick pause. We'll come back and tidy things up on our end.
Things are really heating up in the Tastemaster kitchen this week as we enter our first elimination challenge.
This week, we celebrate our African pride and see who will rise to the occasion.
10 minutes left and I'm still doing my curd. Things can go wrong very quickly. What I'm doing to try and finish on time is pray.
Join us 7 p.m. on SABC2 every Tuesday.
Repeats on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. and Sundays at 4 p.m.
See you there.
The final stretch comes with high emotions and pressure keeps mounting. RB Leipzig are gunning for maximum points on home soil, but their visitors from Bremen believe in the power of 3 points. They want victory for themselves. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch RB Leipzig versus Werder Bremen on Saturday 11 May at 3 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application closed on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages @SAFM Radio. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Road Accident Fund will be announcing winners of the Road Safety School competition and youth projects to be supported by the fund. In August 2023, RAF launched a comprehensive road safety program for learners and youth. And this program involved educating learners in primary schools, special schools and high schools about road safety through talks, industrial theatre performances and, of course, road safety simulations. The event is going to be held in Durban on Friday, the 10th of May. And for more information, you can call RAF on 087-820-1111 or you can visit www.raf.co.za. It is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. Cast my eye across my window, and I don't know what's going on from a technical perspective. But this is why we do live shows. We are wrapping up the conversation this afternoon, catching up with Rashid Ibrahim Gutta, who is a businessman, now leader of the newly formed Sizwe Uma Nation, SUN for short, and the newly formed political party. And he's been announced as the number one candidate on the upcoming national elections for the party. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about who they are and, of course, what they stand for and who they speak for. Good afternoon, Rashid. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon, Bridget. Thanks for the opportunity and good afternoon to the listeners.
It's only a pleasure. I guess perhaps maybe let's start at the very beginning by giving us some context as to Sizwe Uma Nation, SUN for short.
Yes, SUN was formed in 2015, but it's the first time that it's contesting the national and provincial elections. It was established on the basis of ethos to return to God consciousness and to transform the society into becoming a more just and equitable society.
So you say you were formed in 2015, quite a long time. And at the time, were you formed as a political organization or were you on the ground?
Yes, the party was contesting some of the by-elections in the local elections and that, in the by-elections. But it had limited resources, so it could not go on this magnitude.
I see. By way of your constituency and region, where is SUN represented and who are you representing?
So in terms of our qualification for the national elections, we're on the national ballot and we've qualified for 4 provinces, which is the Northwest Province, the KZN, Western Cape, and the local Gauteng province here. We also appear on all 9 regions, all 9 provinces for the regional ballot, which is also a new ballot, but a very important one.
And talk to us by way of your constituency and perhaps the mandate and issues that have been, given to yourself as well as your organization broadly to take out there to the polls and to take out there in representation of them.
Yeah, in South Africa at present, we are seeing that there's a current pandemic of unemployment, inequality, and poverty. And that is getting exacerbated by the day. So we cannot continue to sit by and watch this unfold. The current leadership hasn't been able to resolve these problems, and we've taken it upon ourselves to stand up and be part of this democracy and defend the democracy. There's a sense of hopelessness because if you look at the last 2 elections, the 2019 and the 2021 election, there's more people that have not voted than people that have voted. But this time around, many South African people have decided to come in and effect positive change. There's a record number of parties that are contesting and independent candidates for the first time. So I think they should be given an opportunity. The small parties are small because of their resources, but they have big visions. Our objective is to transform society. We cannot continue to watch this unfold. This country is a very rich country, but it's well endowed with mineral resources, but unfortunately it's getting exported in its raw form. And we believe that we should reindustrialize the country by manufacturing the finished product and exporting it like other countries so that we can become a much more prosperous society and reduce the unemployment.
And maybe let's delve a little bit deeper then in as far as inequality and poverty, as you say, sort of being centered on your agenda there and defending democracy. What are you proposing as a newly formed party? How are you proposing to go about doing exactly that?
Yeah, in office, in the first 100 days, if we are elected into office, we want to implement structural reforms. And by that I mean is we need to ensure that there are laws that encourage people to export and beneficiate the product. And we must have penalties for exporting the raw materials. We need a transformation of ownership. The economy is concentrated in too few hands. So we need to have a rebalance. Also, we need to look at workers in terms of how they are benefiting. We need to align productivity and performance with profit-sharing incentives for workers so that there isn't this huge imbalance. We are one of the most unequal societies in the world. So we need to address those issues and start the engine for growth. Naturally, once we provide the incentives like tax rebates, shipping rebates, we will be able to, investors will come in automatically and we will see the growth. But we need to balance it in a responsible way. We're not only a selected bunch of politically connected individuals and big business benefit at the expense of the masses, which is currently happening.
Yeah. You say you're big in ideas and small in resource. And I wonder, in the era of coalition partnerships and governments which are here to stay, no matter how much people protest, how do you envision collaborating with the existing political structures and other political parties in order to achieve your goals?
Look, we are open to negotiate with political parties, but I think we want to take a more nuanced approach. And by that I mean is that we need to look at an issue-by-issue basis. If you look at it, 7 out of 10 issues are going to be aligned. If you look at the manifestos, they're all similar. We all want to fix unemployment. We all want to fix inequality. We all want to make the country to be more productive. So we won't be disagreeing with most parties. I believe that once we get into national parliament, we go there through our parties, but we need to put the country ahead of the party. Currently, what's happening is that the party is being put above the country, and that is where it's causing all of these problems. So we need to work for the country now, and not for self-interests.
Yeah. And as you talk about working for the country, so, if you log on to any social media platform or if you're in conversation with any citizen, big political structures and parties have been often criticized for the lack of work. And people now saying, show me the proof, show me the work, where you've governed, where you've been in partnership, where you've had initiatives, where you've had some kind of voice. Show me what you've done in order to impact communities in one way or another. And I guess by extension, that theme must be extended to new players in the game as well. 2015 is when you guys were formed, and no doubt you've been active on the ground in particular communities. And is there anything that voters can hinge on and say, okay, Sun has done X, Y, and Z where their voice has been prominent, and so let's give them a chance?
Yes. If you look at the big parties, they've been given an opportunity for the last 30 years. The first 15 years of our democracy saw positive change. But in the second 15 years, we've seen a continuous decline with plenty of excuses. So what we're saying is give us as a small party a chance. And recently when we were on the campaign trail, we looked at campaigning with a purpose. I'm from Mahikeng area, and it coincided with a protest march there where there was a protest because people did not have water in their village area. So we went to the core of the problem and spoke to the people to see what is their real problem. And they're not getting a basic service like water. So we decided to donate a borehole. And the party since 2015 has been doing these kind of NGO activities where they do charitable things for different areas in marginalized areas. So wherever we go now, people want borehole. Simple thing like water is a basic necessity that is being deprived to people. Besides the infrastructure, the roads collapsing, there's huge unemployment here, and they are being exploited because when there's no water, then you get these resellers of water in these water tanks.
Yeah.
Now, the people have to actually pay money for getting the water, which should be a basic right. This is an indignity to the people of this country.
Absolutely. Rashid, all the very best to you and Sun in the upcoming elections, and thank you so much for taking the time. That was Rashid Ibrahim Gutta, who is a businessman now turned politician, and he's been named as the leader of the newly formed in 2015 really, Sizwe Uma Nation, which is contesting the elections at the national ballot and contesting across 4 provinces. comprises the Northwest, KZN, Western Cape and Gauteng. That is how we wrap it up on our side. Thank you so much for choosing to be in conversation with us. We don't take it lightly. Can you believe it? The week is done and dusted. Tomorrow is Friday, so we get to kekeleza around here. I'm very excited. Black Motion is going to be joining us for full access tomorrow between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, so you don't want to miss that one. From myself and my team, we thank you, we appreciate you, and inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
The National Pulse on SAFM.
Is the burning flag not, by its very nature, going to be sensationalist, going to draw a response, and can be seen by many people as just outrightly the wrong thing to do, even though the merits of the communication is correct?
We live in a country where if I or Zuma or Ramaphosa or somebody else was to say something because we are black, we can get away with it. When a white South African says the same thing, we throw apartheid and racism and white monopoly, capitalism and all that stuff at them, or we otherize them, and it cannot be right. Okay, if I were to see that advert, I would have done it. So South Africa is burning. I could have used our flag. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to defend.
Solly Moeng, who is a brand reputation management strategist, but also now a member of Action SA.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.